Welcome back. My name is Dr. Carl Baird, and today I'll be showing you 12 of my favorite hip mobility exercises for lower back pain, starting with the easiest and working our way to the hardest. So if you are an adult who's been dealing with lower back pain, especially the type of back pain that we associate with getting older, one of the primary causes could be tight hips. When we don't have full range of motion in our hips, this can cause compensations that lead to more impact on your spine when you're going through your exercise routine or just going throughout your day. And so if you're somebody who has tight hips, we want to make sure that we work on improving that range of motion so less impact goes through the spine. Let's go ahead and get started. So as I mentioned before, tight hips can be one of the things that cause compensations in our movement that lead to more impact on your spine for more lower back pain, especially in adults as they get older. But how can we tell if this is maybe a contributor to your issue? And again, there are a lot of tests that your doctor or physical therapist may do to test your hip mobility. One of my favorites, one that you can do yourself and is a great self-assessment, is just getting into a deep squat. So all you're going to do is perform a simple air squat and try to sink your hips down as low as you can go. So if you're somebody that has good hip mobility, you're probably able to sink your hips all the way down to your heels. If you're able to do that, my guess is you don't really have tight hips and that your back pain is coming from somewhere else. I have about medium hip movement. So you can see I can sink down. I can get past to where my thighs are parallel with the ground, but I can't sink all the way down. So I have a little bit of hip tightness. But if you're somebody that really struggles with hip tightness, you might get stuck here or here. And that is a sign that you do have tight hips and that these exercises will be good for you to try. The first exercise that I'll demonstrate is called Windshield Wipers. So I actually use this as a warm-up for lower back pain because it does get some movement in that lower back to help with pain and stiffness. But with some simple changes, you can make it more of a hip mobility exercise and focus on getting that internal and external rotation of your hips. So to perform, we'll simply lay on our back, knees bent, feet flat on the floor. And from here, all we're going to do is let our knees drop to the left, bring them back up, and drop to the right. So again, what you're probably feeling is a nice stretch in your lower back to help with some pain and stiffness that you might get back there. To keep this more on your hips, focus on keeping your back and hips on the ground. So from here, I'm going to let my knees fall to the left, but I'm not letting my back come off the ground, and you'll see your knees won't be able to go quite as far. Same thing to the left. So again, nice and easy, gentle range of motion, internal and external rotation of the hips is a great place to start working on your hip mobility. The next exercise is a simple hip flexor stretch. This is going to help your hip with flexion and extension if that's where you're tight. And again, it's important to add some movement and not just make this a static hold. So let me show you what I mean. So we'll start in this kneeling lunge position. And from there, I'm going to rock forward. So bending over my front leg, and what you'll feel is some stretching in the front side of this back leg. So you want to ease yourself into it, go as far as you can, and then come out. And then you're going to ease right back into it, trying to go a little bit further this time. So sink in a little bit deeper, focusing on that stretch and pull here, and then come out. And after you've done 3 or 4, going as far as you can, then we want to hold this position here. And I like to hold it for about 30 seconds, trying to sink as deep as you can to really get that hip extension. And there you have it. That's the hip flexor stretch. The next exercise I like to call adductor rock back. So the adductor is just a fancy name for your groin muscle, which is another muscle that can get really tight and limit your hip mobility. So to perform this exercise, I'll start on my knees, put my hand out in front, and from there, I'm going to bring one leg out to the side. And again, I want to focus on trying to keep that foot nice and flat. And then from there, I'm going to try to bring my hips back to my heels. And again, just like with the hip flexor stretch, I'm just going to go a little bit, come back out of that position, and then I'm going to rock back Going a little bit further this time. Trying to get those hips towards my heel. And then after 3 or 4 repetitions, I'm going to sink back as far as I can and hold for 30 seconds. And again, where you want to feel that is your adductor or your groin muscle on the inside of this leg here, really focusing on improving the length and mobility of that muscle and joint. Again, make sure you do both sides. The next exercise is a variation of our hip flexor stretch, but it's going to allow us to focus not only on the front of the hip, but the back of the leg as well. This is called a cat-cow lunge. So we're going to start in the same position as that hip flexor stretch in this kneeling lunge. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to rock forward. Again, feel that stretch on the front. Really try to open everything up to get more of a pull on the front, get that hip into extension. And then from there, I'm going to press through my right foot, and you might have to move your heel up a bit, bringing my hip back toward my heel, toe up. So now I'm focusing on the back side of my right hip. Hold just for a second or two. Come back forward, bend over this front foot, focusing on the front side of my left. And push off that foot. Round everything forward. It's okay to put your hands on the ground here just for balance. But again, I want to feel that stretch in the back. And coming forward. Make sure that you do both sides. Another popular hip mobility exercise is the pigeon pose. So to perform this one or to get in the right position, I like to start in this downward dog position. And then you can take your left leg, bring it forward, place the heel on the ground, and then you're going to sink back into the stretch here. So again, now I feel that stretch in the back side of that hip capsule. If you want a little bit more, you can really focus on bending forward over that leg. And to get back out, you bring that leg back. You can shift into that downward dog position again. Pedal out the feet for a few. That'll get, again, the posterior chain. And then take your opposite foot and sink into that position pose. Again, you want to feel it on the back side of your hip. A nice, good stretch. The next exercise is called baby squats. These are one of my favorites that I include in my warm-up almost every day. So to perform this exercise, we're just going to bend forward and grab our toes. And from there, I'm going to sink my hips down. Your feet can go a little wider on this one. Try to get my hips as low as they can. And then come back up. Try to straighten those legs, get that stretch in the hamstrings, and come back down. So if you've ever seen a baby learn to get to a standing position, this is kind of how they do it. But again, a really good stretch of that hip joint capsule. And then when you bring your hips up, a really good stretch in the posterior chain here. You just come in and out. That is the baby squat. Next exercise is called hip CARS. So CARS is just an acronym for controlled articular rotations, which is a fancy way of saying we're going to try to take our hip joint through its full range of motion. So to perform this exercise, we'll start on our hands and knees with our knees right under our hips, our hands right under our shoulders. And from there, I'll start by lifting my left leg and flexing my hip. Then I'll bring my leg out and open. And once I get as far as I can, I'll start to internally rotate as I bring it back in to this position. So again, I want to make sure that my leg is nice in line with my body here. And then I can bring it back and perform that full range of motion again. So again, with this one, we want to make sure it's nice and slow and controlled. The slower you can do this, the better. So it's simply you're up, out, start to turn in, and back to the starting position. Give that one a try. The next exercise we'll look at is the assisted Shin Box. So the Shin Box is a great exercise to take your hips through their full rotational range of motion. And the assisted version just means you'll have your hands supporting you in the back as you go through those range of motion. So to perform, we want to put one leg, let's start out of the left, in a 90-degree bend, and the other one is also in a 90-degree bend, but in the opposite way. So my right leg here is internally rotated, my left is externally rotated, my hands are right behind me here, and then from there, I'm going to lift my right and left leg and shift to the opposite side. So again, you want to try to keep your legs in those 90-90 positions as you go all the way through, and back the other way. So again, you're just taking your hips through their full range of motion. And if you're able, you can simply take away the arms and do this with your hands up, adding an extra challenge. So give that a try. Next, we have an exercise called the SpiderMan Stretch. It's also a traditional yoga pose, but it's a great way to improve your hip mobility. So to perform this, we're going to start in that downward dog, and then I'll take my left leg and place the foot on the outside of my right hand. So I want to keep my back leg up off the ground. And you can do a couple things here. One, you can just hold this position. If you really want to focus on areas where you're tight, you can kind of move in small circles over this front hip, trying to find any spot of tightness, or you can really focus on pressing that knee out to add even more of a stretch in your groin, adductor muscle, and just make sure you do both sides. So to get to the other side, move into that downward dog position and put the right foot on the outside of that left hand and stretch out the right. So there you got it. That is the SpiderMan stretch. Next, we have the alternating lunge. This is just a simple, slightly more difficult variation of that SpiderMan stretch. So to perform, we'll get into our SpiderMan stretch. So downward dog position, place my right foot outside of my right hand and hold for a little bit here again. Get that stretch where you can. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk my hands over to the left side, turning my feet. And so now I'm in that SpiderMan stretch, but I'm on the left side. And from there, I'll walk my hands back. So again, you get that stretch in the groin here into that SpiderMan stretch. So go ahead and give the alternating lunge a try. The next exercise that we'll demonstrate is the Cossack Squat. So to perform this, we'll start with a wide stance, and from there, I'm going to bend over one leg. So let's start bending over the right. As I'm bending over the right, I'm going to turn my left foot so my toe is pointing up and trying to sink that back hip as far as you can. Now again, when you watch somebody that's really good at this exercise, you'll notice they can get their hips all the way to their heels. So you want to try and go as low as you can. But again, if you're like me, not everybody has full mobility in their hips. And so this is what it looks like for me with hips that are on the tighter side. Still a good exercise to do. And I'm trying to sink lower every time. And there you have it. That's the Cossack Squat. And now it's time for the most difficult hip mobility exercise that I'll show you today. And this exercise is called the hip airplane. This requires a lot of balance and strength to perform, but it's a fun one to try. So to perform, I'm going to start on my left leg with a slight bend in my knee. So again, it's not locked out. From there, I'm going to hinge over my left hip, trying to keep my leg and my body in a nice straight line. And then from there, I'm going to focus on opening my right hip open to the wall behind me. And you can see my legs shaking, trying to keep balance. And then coming back in. And now I'm going to try to sink that right hip inward. And again, you'll feel a nice stretch on the outside of your hip there. Keep your leg up and work your way back and forth. You can picture your hip joint going out and in with this exercise. Again, very difficult, but very good hip mobility exercise. That's the hip airplane. So there you have it, 12 of my favorite hip mobility exercises to help with your lower back pain. Just a reminder, the goal isn't to do all 12 hip mobility exercises. It's to choose anywhere between 2, 3, 4 at your ability level and really focus on those. And then as you get more and more range of motion and strength, you can move to the more challenging ones. So again, that's all I got for you today. If you have any questions, comments, leave them down below. I'm happy to answer.